This video contains spoilers for The Flash Season 8. The Flash Season 8 continues with Episode 3, aka Armageddon Part 3. This is another crazy episode. I have a lot of notes on my phone, so let's get right into it. So essentially the premise of this episode is that Team Flash is split up. We have Team Flash in Chester's garage, and then we have the Flash at the Hall of Justice with Black Lightning, and then Team Flash itself splits up because there's a divide between Cecile and Iris. Last video, I was saying I think there's something suspicious going on, some wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff, and guess what? There is wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff happening, and Iris has proof. She comes into the garage with a laptop that has the evidence from Joe's death, and you see a footage of him falling off the train tracks. Like, a guy walks by him with a suitcase and it knocks him on the tracks, and then he gets hit by the train, but then when the train's coming at him, he, disappears. There's a frame missing. Iris is like, well, this proves that something weird is going on, that Joe may not really be dead, and Cecile goes off on her. And this was one of my problems with this episode. They've been dealing with metahumans now for roughly 8 years, right? They've dealt with multiverses, time travelers, shapeshifters, speedsters, you name it. Yet Cecile finds it hard to believe that there's a small possibility, or actually maybe a pretty big possibility, that there was some metahuman shenanigans involved in Joe's death, and that he may not actually be dead, or maybe he wasn't meant to be dead. And while I do know this episode is trying to talk about her grief, it's exploring her dealing with her grief, I understand that. But logically speaking, come on, out of all the things, they've seen so many things happen over the years. They've seen the impossible happen several occasions, so why is it so hard for her to believe in this one moment that maybe everything is not what it seems? That just didn't make sense to me. And then the other thing is that during the argument, Cecile tries to make it seem like Iris doesn't know what she's going through when Joe was literally her father. She spent way more years with Joe than Cecile did. And that part was really weird, and I'm glad that Iris brought it up because that was, out of line. I don't know where Cecile was coming from there. That was just weird. So, once we got past that, the team split up. So we have Iris and Allegra going on the investigation, trying to figure out what actually happened to Joe. And then we have the rest of Team Flash trying to find a way to find Barry by amplifying Cecile's powers. On the Allegra and Iris side, you see them going through the investigation, and you start to see that there's several coincidences that led up to Joe's death, which are pretty much proving that something weird is going on. Now, while they're investigating, Iris is starting to notice these little particles sort of appearing, but Allegra can't see them even with her powers. And so then Dion shows up to try and give Iris her time travel treatment so she stops phasing or whatever. And Iris is like, I need you to undo them so I can see what's going on. And he's like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So she goes full red pill, and now she sees everything that's going on. And even Dion can see that there's weird particles in the air, proving that there's some time travel shenanigans happening and that Joe was not meant to die. I was right. I'm so happy that my theory is right and that there's more to it, that somebody else is working behind the scenes to make the Flash go crazy. I knew it. So now with the rest of Team Flash, and they're trying to figure out how to find Barry, Chester makes a machine with stuff from his garage, of course, because he's Chester, and they decide that they need the help of Top, another psychic meta that they know, who of course is a criminal, but she's going to help Cecile in this one case, or so he thought. So these two have to work together with the machine to amplify the power so they can find where Barry is. Now, going back to that grief thing, Top wants Cecile to abandon her emotions, to bury her grief, do not use that, ignore that stuff so she can be as powerful as possible. And it works for a little bit, but almost too well, and it breaks, right? So then Cecile and Caitlin have this heart-to-heart about how she should use her grief as power. And then again, Cecile tries to act like she's the only person who knows what she's going through, when Caitlin has also lost a loved one, her husband, Ronnie. And she's talked about him so many times, so I'm very surprised that Cecile just completely forgot about that. But anywho, Caitlin sets her straight and says, you know what? You should use your grief as power. You should accept it, use it to move forward. And that was a good lesson. I like that part of Cecile's story. Her arguments and everybody, to me, were kind of a weak point of the episode, but overall, I like the message that came from this. So they do it the right way, and of course, it works. They found barriers. Despero, being kind of smart, he uses the particle accelerator to boost his powers, and then he tries to hijack Cecile and Top's psychic connection so that he can find Barry for himself. Top tries to turn on them, which is also coming, and then he almost kills her. And now Cecile was able to use her powers to hold back Despero because, again, she's using her grief, I guess, as fuel for her powers, so she was able to overpower Despero. And now, even though the Team Flash has found the location of the Flash, Despero is right on their tail because obviously he could just follow them there. So now, my favorite part of this episode was the interactions between Barry and Jefferson. So we learned that Injustice Protocol is something that they've come up with, I guess, off screen. They've decided that if there's any member of the group that goes rogue, because if any of them go rogue, it's game over for everybody, that there will be one designated team member that will take them out or do what needs to be done. And so that is what Jefferson is for Barry. Jefferson, being someone that uses lightning, is able to take away Barry's powers by disrupting his connection with the Speed Force. And that's what Barry wants him to do because he doesn't trust himself and he thinks he is going to cause this Armageddon. But of course, Jefferson tries to talk him out of it. He teaches him his motto. It's a really sweet moment. And then, of course, they get into a fight and they break Oliver's statue, which was kind of messed up. But I think this was great character development for both of them. And I liked seeing these two working together and then fighting. That was really cool. We didn't really get to see a lot of them interacting in Crisis a couple years ago because it was such a quick appearance. It was like a really quick cameo. But here, I think we really get to see these characters connect and see where they have common ground. And you get to see Jefferson really encourage Barry, and I think that was one of the strongest parts of this episode. As they finish fighting and they make up, Despero shows up again and tries to kill Barry, but Iris and Dion show up. Black Lightning holds back Despero. Black Lightning was able to disrupt a lot of Barry's connection, but not all of it, so there's still Speed Force in him. And while he's trying to escape, he can't go fast enough, so then Dion gives him a little bit of his power, and so now he's able to go into the future to try and figure out what happened and what causes Armageddon. He gets to the future, and guess what? It is a wedding between Iris and Eobard Thawne. And I mean, if there is anybody else working behind the scenes, it might as well be him, because of course he's always out there trying to mess up the Flash's life from day one. While there is still time for somebody else to show up, I think Eobard Thawne is the most likely suspect because he's already known for messing with time. So Barry walks into the room and sees this, I guess, wedding reception. I guess it's after the wedding, but Iris and Eobard Thawne are on stage together, and a bunch of their friends are there. Chester's there with these long locks, kind of looks like Static Shock. We have Allegra, Alex Danvers, Ryan is there. And surprisingly, though, I didn't see Mia, but I'm sure she's going to show up later because they're in the future now. And everybody's like, what are you doing here? So this must be after Armageddon happens. So we'll see what happens. But this was a really fun episode overall, minus the stuff with Cecile. I mean, again, I liked the lesson of her story, but it was like just kind of weird for me. It didn't make sense. Her argument didn't make sense. I also really liked the whole mystery aspect where they were trying to find evidence about what happened to Joe and how they're following the different leads. Like, for example, how the train came earlier than it's supposed to, even though it's historically been late. How the brakes failed, even though it had been inspected the day before. Like, all these little things. I loved how they were kind of using their reporter smarts to go around and find evidence, talk to people. Like, this is reporter Iris. I'm happy that we're seeing more of this. And there's no weird thing happening, no mirror clones or anything. This is just Iris and Allegra working together, being reporters. And I really enjoyed that. So, theories for next week. Obviously, Barry and Eobard Thawne are probably going to go head-to-head. And we're going to find out more about what actually happens in Armageddon, which I'm looking forward to. Overall, I really enjoyed this episode. I am really excited for where this crossover is going. It is one of the best ones so far, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how it all concludes. Thank you so much for watching. And before I sign off, I wanted to say thank you because I just hit 300 subscribers. Whether you were there from the beginning or you just subscribed yesterday, I am very thankful for your support. It's been a rough year, but making YouTube videos has been the highlight for sure, and having all these shows and movies to talk about has been really great too. So I look forward to talking about more of this kind of stuff in the future, and I am really excited to see what 2022 brings. Thank you so much for watching and supporting. I'll see you in the next one.